CHHP Compressor, and today we're going to show you how to change a terminal plate on a Trane CHHP Screw Compressor. Like you're working on any compressor in the field, make sure it's isolated from the system, there's no pressure in it, it's been evacuated. Obviously, since you're dealing with the terminal plate, make sure the power is turned off. Here, since we're obviously not in the field, we're in the factory, there are no wires going to here, so it's just the terminal studs in the plate. So we're going to show you what you need to do do a change. So step one is you're going to want to loosen up the bolts on the terminal plate, leave a few in, and then jump onto the terminal nuts. So the socket I'm going to use for this size is a 19 mm. It's a metric compressor. Now the other thing to note is the placement of the terminal plate, just in case you don't want to make a mistake, that 1, 2, and 3 is on this side. This is the stator side. This is the suction side. So number 3 is going to be to the side of the suction side of the compressor. Now I'm going to take the bolts out, but I'm going to just keep like 4 in loosely screwed in. Next, I'm going to want to loosen up the terminal screw nuts, which are also 19 mm. Okay, so now let's open up the plate. Sometimes it comes off easily, sometimes you have to hit it with the hammer, break the seal. You can see underneath here, the wires are typically all labeled with the proper numbers, so you know how it coincides with on top. But you should, before you take the terminals completely out of the plate, just double check and make sure that it is numbered, or the numbers are still visible, because you don't want to get into an issue of not sure where they go and potentially wire it up wrong. Next up is you're going to want to tap the studs down a little bit. As you pull them out, there's the top insulators. So now you'll also notice in the plate are the terminal seals. You're going to want to take them out after you take the plate off. You want to make sure you don't have any of the parts you're working on or the terminal seals fall into the compressor cavity. Also, you notice the gasket is still stuck on here. So when you go to put the new gasket on, you want to make sure you remove all this completely. You might need to scrape it off a little bit, but when you do that, you got to make sure you don't gouge the casting or the face and cause a scratch that could obviously facilitate a leak. You'll see here on them, like I said before, they're numbered. They have a bottom insulator. We're going to change this. And most of the time they should just slide right off. The other thing that I want to mention is we're showing you how to change the terminal plate. Say it's leaking in the field and you want to put new seals on, and so that's what we're doing here. If you want to change the terminal studs, it's not going to be just as easy as you could just loosen them up and slide them out. These are crimped onto the end of the terminal leads, the lead wire. So if you're going to do this, one, you'd always want to make sure you have enough length, which here you would, and two, you would have to then cut it, peel back the insulation, and then put them into a new terminal stud. You could either solder them in and crimp them, or just crimp them. Overall though, for a leak, if the terminal studs are perfectly fine and there was no arcing that caused damage to the terminal studs, which helped facilitate the leak, I would recommend not changing the terminal studs, just the insulators, if that's what the cause is, if it's just from leaking through the terminal seals. We're going to take the terminal plate, knock out the O-rings in the middle, because they do kind of stick on pretty well. Then we'll be ready to put on the new insulators and everything. Okay, so now we're at the point we're going to start assembling it again. You want to make sure, like I said before, that the surface is all nice and clean. There's no old gasket still stuck here that could help facilitate a leak. The plate, you want to make sure you got all the little seals out of it. The gasket off nice and clean. You can see that I cleaned up the face. Any bit of dirt or debris that's in there could lead and facilitate a leak. The other side, I like to also just clean the face where the insulators are going to sit, and you can see how I did that here. This is what you need to do in the field. Obviously, if we're building these in-house like we do, this would be fully clean, back to being brand new. But that's not what we're trying to accomplish here. We're simulating as if you're doing this out in the field. You're going to get the gasket. We're going to make sure it's nice, lightly oiled. There's no dust or debris on it either. And then you're going to take it and line it up. You can see that this is not perfectly rectangular, and neither is this gasket. So you want to line that little square up to right there. Careful not to damage the gasket. And we're going to line that up. Make sure it all lines up nice. So next, we're going to take the plate and we're going to make sure we're going to line it up properly. Remember what I said. It's 1, 2, and 3. Number 3 is going to be on the side of the stator or the suction side. So if you match that up to the suction side, you can't mix up the direction. You're going to put new insulators. The bottom insulator for this is an INS 02690. See here, nice and new. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is that inside that insulator, you could see a little square. That little square is going to line up with the square on the terminal stud to prevent the terminal stud from spinning when it's in place. Look for number 1. There we are. So number 1 goes in like that. If you get it right, see it drops down. Let's try that again. It drops down. Now you know. You try to turn it, you can't because it's now in the square. So next, you're going to want to take your plate, double check you got everything right, put the right one in that you need, right like that. And just be careful that you don't damage any of the studs underneath. Take the new terminal seal, you're going to push that down, make sure it gets all the way in there. You don't have to go too crazy because when you put the new insulator on it, it'll help push it down. The insulator, the top insulator that we're going to use is an INS 02691. We also offer a terminal repair kit, which will be at the bottom of the screen. So if you ever need to order it, call us here at National Compressor, and we can send you a whole terminal repair kit. After you get that on, you can take a washer, you're going to take a nut, you're going to take your 19mm socket. Before I was using an impact, I do not recommend that when putting the studs on. You're going to want to use a nice ratchet, bring it down nice and slow and even. And it'll slowly bring it in. You're going to just snug it up. So we got the first one done, as you saw. Now you would do that with all the others. After you snug it up, you then put the terminal plate down. When you have all 6 done, you then put the terminal plate down, screw in some of the bolts. At that point, you can then torque the stud. It's going to be 20 foot-pounds. Do not overdo it because some of the studs, as these are copper and you can stretch them out. Then after that, you can torque the terminal plate bolts down, which the plate bolts are 86 foot-pounds. So you can do that. After that, you're good to go. I would suggest putting a little pressure in the compressor, soaping it up, making sure that it is leak-free before you put your refrigerant charge back in and hook it back up to the system. And that's how you repair a terminal plate on a CHHP Trane screw compressor.